On this episode of Lapeef, Let's Talk.
I don't think women understand that. They look at money and alimony and child support as if that's going to sustain them. But the women that I know that have divorced and has tried to move on, hasn't moved on, and they're doing incredibly worse than they were with their husband. So I think, again, that narrative needs to be spoken, and it's not. So I think that's interesting.
Yeah, I would agree with that, Courtney. It's a lot of women that I've even interacted with on a coaching level that they thought that the grass was greener, and they starting to revisit. Hindsight is 2020, and they starting to revisit exactly why they broke up with the guy that they was with, and they like, it really wasn't that big of a deal. You know what I'm saying? It just ballooned into something that was a lot bigger, but I don't know.
I bet if they changed the court systems in this country, things would change, that women wouldn't have that incentive to just up and leave if you weren't getting all of this money for leaving.
I think to your point, Anton, people, you can look on Twitter, social media, there people even in the comments talking about, I'm not going to get married because it's a scam and it doesn't work. Like, there are people who just don't believe in marriage, and it's because they are blaming it on like today's times, the modern age. It just doesn't work in today's context. But, you know, I think if we surface what the possible reasons could be, then, you know, they can get ahead of it, then try to backpedal and try to save it.
I mean, if I had to guess, right, and this is just my opinion, a couple of different things. And I'm also curious as to what you think also, Amira and Rilla. But if I had to guess, I think that largely the more freedom that we have and the more options that we have, the less likely we are to stay committed to whatever it is that we are a part of, right? Like, for example, my wife has never known another man. All that she knows is me. All that she ever wants to know is me. I think that I had heard Amira, I don't know if she said it on this show or, oh no, maybe she said it when me and her was having a conversation, but one of the things that she emphasized was that she never wanted to have a hot girl summer. She didn't want to go and travel with her homegirls. She didn't want to go and hang out and do the girls trip in Miami. The only thing that she wanted to, you know, subject herself to was her husband and the standard that they set in their household. You know what I'm saying? And so the additional context for me, right, and I know that everybody else has their own way of communicating. For me, I'm always looking for the solution. I'm always looking to understand why things are the way they are, and then what is the solution. And so when I hear people say that, okay, I choose not to participate or I choose not to expose myself to certain things, me personally, I don't put myself in a position to have to say or reject temptation. I don't put myself in a position to where a woman can say anything to me and then I have to reject her. I just don't even, you know what I'm saying, add that part into the narrative. So, you know, for me, I'm always solution oriented. And I think that it's important for people to understand that it can be a beneficial thing. And I don't even have a problem with them choosing to break up the Currys, the senior Currys, because their kids are grown, right? The decisions that they make today largely do not affect anybody but them. You know what I'm saying? The problems that I mainly have is when the family structure is completely divided and the kids are affected, and then it also ultimately trickles down because they gonna have kids and then they carry that same behavior or that same mindset behind what they think is normal, and then they normalize it for everybody else. So that's just the context that I think needs to be added, and I think that it's a really good question because it allows us to be able to deep dive down so many different rabbit holes in order to try to solve for a problem or a myth that we think is being perpetuated across the internet today.
I kind of want to tie this to, because when I heard the story about the Currys, I often hear a lot of families that actually go through this. You know, they raise the kids, and then once the kids are grown, then they separate. So I'm just curious to have this conversation because, like, when we're young, we look forward to marriage. We think about forever. I understand that you think about forever now, Anton, and you say under no circumstances you're going to get a divorce. But I see so many families that once the kids, they start to grow apart, you know, then somebody cheats and then it's just a few back and forth and then they separate. So
I don't even think that cheating is a reason to get divorced. I don't.
Yeah, I understand. But we often see it happen. Like, I've seen it happen a lot. Like, I've seen people that I thought would be married forever, and then I'm talking to such and such, and I'm hearing, like, you know, such and such got a divorce. I'm like, what? Like, I thought everything like it was perfectly fine. Everything like it was okay. Amira, why is it getting harder for families to stay together in this modern age?
Hello, everyone. Nice to see you all again. I have 4 main reasons that I've seen. Looking around, I've noticed that one of the main reasons that people get divorced is because of financial issues and infidelity in America or the Western world. From what I've seen is another problem is the court system. The court system always favors women. So for a woman, there's nothing but benefits and rewards once you divorce. So it's easier to throw in the towel. Another thing that I see is that there's a lack of religion. There's a lack of honor, a sense of, I don't want to be in the wrong. There's another problem with there's no fear of disappointing your family or your father. You don't have that in the Western world. There's no one to answer to. So my 4 reasons are money for the women, the court system, money for the women, the court system is for the women, for the men, the lack of religion is for both, and the no fear of disappointing your parents, your family is for both.
Okay. Courtney, why is it getting harder for families to stay together in this modern age?
I mean, I'm going to go back to what I said. I mean, is it really getting harder? Or are we doing better? I would seem to want to know why is that we perpetuate more of the divorces than the celebration of marriages and the longer marriages that's been had. So I would want to know why is that kind of the narrative that we speak of? But I will say this about as far as with women, and the courts definitely favor women as far as with children and I guess alimony and things like that. But I think with women and the reason why we divorce at a higher rate or try to file for it is because we have that idea like, oh, we'll be okay and I'll get alimony, I'll get child support. But the women that I know that are divorced are doing incredibly worse than when they were married. They're not able to keep up the lifestyle they had with having 2 incomes instead of 1. The women that are getting out there are usually now older and find it very hard now to sustain or get in a relationship because of the baggage, because they have multiple kids. So I don't think women understand that. They look at money and alimony and child support as if that's going to sustain them. But the women that I know that have divorced and has tried to move on, hasn't moved on, and they're doing incredibly worse than they were with their husband. So I think, again, that narrative needs to be spoken, and it's not. So I think that's interesting.
Yeah, I would agree with that, Courtney. It's a lot of women that I've even interacted with on a coaching level that they thought that the grass was greener, and they starting to revisit, hindsight is 2020, and they starting to revisit exactly why they broke up with the guy that they was with. And they like, it really wasn't that big of a deal. You know what I'm saying? It just ballooned into something that was a lot bigger, but I don't know.
I bet if they changed the court systems in this country, things would change, that women wouldn't have that incentive to just up and leave. If you weren't getting all of this money for leaving,